Hello, this is Jonathan Agnew, and thanks for downloading the Test Match Special podcast. Welcome along to another delight from our 40 from 40 series, listening back to some of our favourite view from the boundary interviews from the last 4 decades. Today, we're heading back to 2013, really? And a memorable interview with one of English football's most respected voices. In a trophy-laden playing career that lasted almost 20 years, Gary Neville played for Manchester United 400 times and represented his country on 85 occasions. Of course, he and his brother Phil starred at Old Trafford Football Stadium, but they could easily have been breaking records at the cricket ground down the road, having been hugely promising batsmen in their teens. Well, Gary joined me in the TMS commentary box at the Old Trafford that I know best during an Ashes test for a really fascinating chat, beginning, of course, with his love of cricket.
I mean, it was typical as a kid, football in the winter, cricket in the summer. Me and my brother, we would switch just like that and love each sport equally, and played with the likes of Ronnie Irani, or against Ronnie Irani, against Michael Vaughan and a couple of other lads, and it was good. It toughened me up for cricket, you know, because as a 14-year-old you're playing at football, you're playing against people your own age, whereas at cricket you're playing in the first team at Greenmount, you're coming up against professional cricketers in league cricket. Yeah, and it's a harsh environment, and for a 14-year-old it is. I remember getting dobbed once. Couldn't believe it, and a couple of my senior teammates came and said, "You won't do that again, son, will you?" And sort of, it toughened me up.
Ingrained
and made me think,
into you a bit.
Yeah, this is sport. This is you want to win. You want to win. You do anything to win. And I suppose it's not in the spirit of the game all the time, dobbing, particularly a 14-year-old kid from a 50-odd-year-old old Kersley pro as he was at the time. But it toughened me up and made me realise that sport's tough and that you've got to work hard at it.
Yes. What's dobbing then? That's a sort of a very northern term.
Mancad, is it when you...
Oh, that?
Yes.
You ran out, right.
At bowler's end,
yes.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Is that a northern term?
I haven't heard a dobbing in that sense before.
Have you not?
No. You've taught me something, thank you. I'm going to jot that down. That's a new one. No. So backing up and off you go.
Backing up, yeah. Taking your bails, a bit of a naughty one.
Yeah, that is. Why did you do it?
He did it because he wanted to win. And I was 32, not out at the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was a league game. Light was fading. We were chasing about 190. I think we were about 150 odd for 6, 7. I was a young kid at the time, and just backing up at mine, a bit eager, and just clip my bails off, and away I go. I'm out, and the rest of my teammates outwardly went mad at him.
Yeah.
But
you've never forgotten it.
Yeah, and in the changing room, a couple of them said, "You won't do that again. You have to wise up."
Yeah. What a great lesson. It must have been mayhem in your back garden, Gary, surely. I mean, there's you and your brother, and your sister, for goodness sake, also international sports woman. I mean, how did you sort it out? You must have been battling away in there. You must have been, it must have been come to bloodshed almost out there. It must be very competitive.
It was competitive, and I think the fact that my mum would play netball Monday night, rounders Thursday night, hockey Saturday. My dad would play cricket weekends. We'd always have sport to go and watch. We'd always be on the sidelines, either the netball court or the cricket pitch, just playing sport ourselves and loving it, and growing up in a very sporting environment. And we weren't pushed in the sense that you must become a professional football player or a cricket player, but because they played sport, we were always encouraged to go and watch them. And when we watched them, we did it ourselves. We wanted to be cricket players, wanted to be in both of them. You wanted to be Mike Gattin, Alan Lamb. You wanted to be Brian Robson at football, or one of the. It really did switch from summer to winter, and just had our heroes. And like I said, we had as many cricketing heroes as we did football. We used to practice, imitate all the run-ups of the England bowling actions. Yes, Derek Pringle wasn't very good.
Well, no, he had rather a sort of prancing sort of a run, wasn't it, for a big bloke?
Yeah, and I always got hit for 6 every time I bowled with Derek Pringle.
Well, I hope you gave it up.
Yeah, I did. Went with Imran Khan.
Yeah. When did it? First of all, I mean, you can brag about your cricket here, Gary, because you're allowed to. It's Test Match Special. But your brother probably was a bit better than you, was he?
He was a serious cricketer. I mean, he broke Michael Atherton's and John Crawley's local records for Lancashire schools, played for England, was touring all around, playing for Lancashire seconds at the age of 15, 16. He was a real talent, and he had a choice to make. He had a genuine choice.
Did he?
Where Lancashire were offering him a contract and Manchester United were offering him a contract. And I'd started at Old Trafford, the football Old Trafford. Yes, the other one. And it was a case of, I think he just followed in my footsteps. Obviously, I'd enjoyed myself in my first 12 months. We'd won the Youth Cup, which was a big thing for Manchester United. He'd seen the 15,000, 20,000 people turn up to watch an under-18s game and thought, I'm going to follow Gary into football, and he'd have a real choice to make. He played Andrew Flintoff for many years as a young cricketer.
Would it have been, if it had been a lesser football club, I wonder if Phil might not have made that choice, do you think?
I think so. I always think back to Philip in particular. I know I joke sometimes about the two of us in terms of cricket, but actually I would love to have seen how he would have developed as a cricket player, because he was well thought of. He was, like you say, he was doing everything he could do at that age in terms of breaking the records of people who were going on and playing for England. So he was on the path, and it's a shame that you couldn't play both football and cricket, that the seasons overlap. I think it's a shame now. We've got an incredible cricket test match series on here. We've got England versus Australia, and then the football season starts. And in some ways it'd be great, I love football, obviously I'm passionate about football, but it'd be great to see this series out and then start the football and have a genuine break.
We'd agree with that in this box.
Sure you would.
Well, we would, but not least, of course, I suppose the both of you, 25, 30 years ago, you might have done a Chris Balderstone or a Dennis Compton and actually being able to play both sports, which of course you can't do anymore.
You can't, and it's a shame. It is a shame, but I think the football season's got longer, the cricket season's got longer, the touring now of the cricket, they're all year round, the lads now, aren't they? They don't get a break. So I think it's impossible on both sports sides, really, to actually break that pattern anymore. I don't think you'll ever see it again.
No. Now, the people that you've played with, you've shared quite a big stand with Matthew Hayden, I think, didn't you? What was it like batting with him?
Well, he was young at the time. I'd say he was probably 19, 20. He was the professional at our cricket club. We shared a stand of 200 plus in a Hamer Cup game against Astley Bridge. Probably the peak of my cricketing career, playing with somebody that had gone on, then went on to play for Australia. But I mean, Greenmount, where we played, was a small ground, so for him it literally was a flick off his pads, and it was six every time. He was incredible talent. To watch him close up at the age of I was 17 was. You were watching a different level. You really were watching a different level. Obviously, he went on to have a fantastic career, which is wonderful for him.
But you knew, batting at the other end, this bloke's got something.
You knew straight. I mean, the size of him was one thing, the sheer presence. So every time, everything was just so simple. He had so much time. And when you're watching cricketers as a youngster, as I was a batsman, more a batsman than a bowler, and the really good ones, just everything looked simple and in control and never flustered, and he was just absolutely wonderful at seeing the ball.
You're playing some quite good shots just while they're talking, Cricketers can't help it, can we?
No.
We do our little hand signals. That's pretty good. Jeffrey would be impressed with that.
I don't think so. He's not impressed with anything.
I'm glad you met him briefly there, saw him in action. These Lancashire League clubs are great, aren't they? I mean, the whole question, I mean, I was lucky enough to play for Haslingden once or something, and Rishton once or twice, and I mean, they're just such an important part of I don't know if they still are or not, I hope they are, but of the sporting map in this part of the world.
Absolutely, it's tough cricket. You think that the professionals who've been through, I mean, the club that I played at, Greenmount, had Franklin Stevenson as a professional. It had Mark
What
Taylor.
A character he was, by the way.
Incredible character, but driven one. You think a professional, he'd come to a cricket ground, a cricket club, he'd have a year, he'd come and pick up his money, it's quite easy for him, but no, they immerse themselves in the local club, they become part of the club for a year. Mark Taylor was the same, Matthew Hayden was the same. They have a real responsibility, and they leave a legacy at the club, they leave a legacy with the young people, and I think that to me it's important cricket around this area. It's real, it's tough.
Yes.
You think about the sledging that goes on obviously at the highest level, but it's just the same at the lowest level. You literally will have to be brave and courageous in your game. I remember Steve Dublin. I don't know if you remember him at all, West Indian.
Dublin?
Yeah, he was a professional that played locally, and I remember Jason Kerr's father, Lenny Kerr, was fielding at mid-on, and it was my first game against Tong.
Right.
And Steve Dublin was a West Indian bowler, and he stood there at the end, and I'm sure it was a conversation I was meant to hear, because Lenny sort of went to him, look, calm down a little bit, and he sort of moved his hands downwards, and Steve Dublin shouted to him, how old is he? And he went, he's only 14. He went, he's old enough. And I thought,
nasty.
Yeah, and I remember playing the first shot from square leg, thinking, this guy's going to knock my head off. But that was part of actually growing up and being tough. That's why I say football, you don't have that experience. You don't have that one-on-one experience, that duel as a football player when you're 14, because you're playing against children your own age.
Yes.
14-year-old versus 14-year-olds. Actually, at cricket, you're playing against, wily old pros who are 50-odd-year-old, or you're playing against the young, ambitious West Indian fast bowler who was coming into the league and trying to make a career in first-class cricket, and you literally were playing in a tough sporting arena, as I found it at that time, but it certainly brought me on.
And it's a lovely story, that, because it does in a way illustrate what sledging is. And I had this conversation with Glenn McGrath actually in the last Test match. It isn't all effing and blinding and that. It's just that really clever little bit that goes. It's psychological, really. And there was nothing unpleasant about what he said at all, except it worked.
Absolutely. And I think that, to me, cricket's unique like that. I think when I think of my childhood, I think West Indies must have had about 15 slips in my childhood.
When you're watching in the 80s.
You just think of Marshall and Garner coming into bowl, and you just think of all those slips. Or you see warm ball and everyone's round the bat. And it's intimidating. It's intimidating. It's a unique experience.
Chattering away.
Yeah, just chipping away at you.
And football doesn't have that, you say. It doesn't, even in the big stuff. When you're playing Liverpool, there isn't that stuff between the players?
There is a bit, and a few of us were a little bit chippy at times, and I was one of them, but not all the time. You wouldn't go out in a game to think, I'm going to disturb him, I'm going to say something to him, unless you felt there was a point in the game that you could gain an advantage. But I think in cricket, you definitely would. Go out with that intention to try and intimidate the batsman and to affect him.
Look at this picture I've been given here. Do you remember this?
Yes, I do remember.
So you and Matthew Hayden. I don't paper. Oh, it's the Bury Times. It featured in the Bury Times. The colour photo with Matthew Hayden. 2-ton route to cup final.
Yeah.
There we go, Greenmount. What did it say here? They massed 278 for 2 against Astley Bridges, thanks to 2 individual hundreds. Gary Neville, an apprentice footballer with Manchester United, strolled to the middle to join 21-year-old Australian professional Matthew Hayden. There you go. It's all there. It's recorded. Have you got that, somebody? Have a little cutting.
Yes, it was the best.
Forget the other stuff. Forget all the England stuff, Gary. Forget all your Manchester United medals. There's stuff like that that's special, isn't it?
It was the best moment in my cricket career, but also it finished my cricket career because it just mentions there that I was an apprentice at Manchester United.
Yeah.
And my youth team coach actually didn't realise that I'd carried on playing cricket in the summer.
So you got in trouble.
So he basically said, "What's this? What are you doing? You've got to stop. You're not insured," and all the rest of it. So that was actually probably, I would say, my last game of cricket. I actually played in the final against Bradshaw. We lost, unfortunately, but I actually played one more game of cricket after that.
It's great you can remember all these games. For all the stuff that you've done, all the football that you've had since, you still remember playing in these games.
I remember everything. I really do. I remember as an under-13 Lancashire under-13 player being left out partway through the season, and the upset and disappointment that caused me at the time. I remember getting back in the year after at under-14 level, and I then remember being quite prominent in the under-15s. I remember all the individual experiences, not walking for my school team on the 49.
Oh, did you?
You know, nicked one behind and thought...
It's a bit unpopular with me, that, Gary.
Yes, I know, but I didn't do it. And I think that, to me... I didn't walk, and it was selfish. It was selfish, and it was a way in which to say, I didn't walk. It wouldn't be something that I don't think my grandparents would have been proud of me for not walking, because they used to come and watch me all the time. But I wanted to win, and that's why I've got sympathy now for somebody who's out there in that middle, and they've fought all the career to get into the middle, and all of a sudden that moment comes, and it's through disappointment sometimes, through that wanting to win. I know you should always say sportsmen should think more and they should pay more attention and the responsibility that they have, but sometimes you can't help but getting caught up in the actual event and the game and the moment that you're in as a sportsman.
When it's your job as well, that's the difference, I guess. And did you have any feeling of that? Did you take that with you into... I mean, OK, you stood, but you obviously felt a bit guilty about it. Did you afterwards, perhaps, or not? That's putting words in your mouth.
Probably not guilt too much. I get over things pretty quickly.
Fair enough.
You know, and when I played at Manchester United, you know, I think at times you did things that, looking back now, you think I should have done better there. I should have done things more responsibly. Should have behaved differently. But generally, it was always through a will of wanting to win and wanting to give your best. And sometimes you disappoint yourself. And we can't all be perfect. And I played in a team with 22 members in a squad, and you're all different. You've got the kid who's quiet, you've got the kid who will try and take every single advantage that he can, you've got the flary one, the one who likes to go out, the one who likes to wear the smart clothes, the one who wears the shades on even when it's not sunny. You have all these types of different characters, and because of being used to that in a football environment, I get used to the fact that we can't all be the same. That's what makes it interesting. The fact that Warner's out there now batting and they're all booing him, that's got to be better for the event, for the theatre, than having somebody out there who's not being. I remember coming here in 2005 on the Saturday and the Sunday in Gillespie.
Oh, yes.
Was getting absolutely battered off that end of the ground over there, and I'm sat below him thinking, this is brutal, but it's what I wanted. I wanted the theatre of the gladiatorial part of sport. I like it, I enjoy it.
Do sportsmen have to get over that? I mean, to get to the very top, do you need to be able to cope with that sort of, well, not abuse, that's not the right word, but banter and hostility from a crowd? I mean, you again know plenty about that with your football. Can you block it out? Is that the art, in fact?
You have to. I think that from my point of view, I was always all's fair. Honestly, I was out on that football pitch and I was playing away from home at Anfield or Elland Road or Main Road, and I knew full well that we were going to get some stick. And you know, when you know something before the game, you can't use it as an excuse after the game. You can't. As a sportsman, you're representing your fans, your teammates, you're proud of what you're doing, and the fact that you come off after the game and said, yeah, but it was a little bit noisy out there for me today, or this fan said that I was this or that. I mean, you've got no excuse. You've got to really develop a skin that's thick enough to get over that. And I think cricket is more difficult from that point of view. I think when I remember playing cricket when I was younger at league level, you can hear every individual shout, whereas at football it's usually just a noise. Whereas actually, I'm sure Gillespie over there,
yes,
you know, it goes a little bit quiet, and then
he's down there by himself.
He was down there by himself, third man,
yeah,
and he's literally on his own, and he's got those fans behind him, and he knows every single shout could hurt him, you know, penetrate his skin and make him feel less good about himself. So you do have to get used to that, I think, as a sportsman. If you can't cope with that, then you shouldn't be playing top level sport.
Yeah. Do you think that batting and that whole question of you and your mate is 20 yards away and you are out there together, and you mentioned the people around the bat and so on, did that help your football in a sense as well? I mean, to have experienced, you know, I think that's the brilliant thing about cricket, and it's such a good thing for kids to learn. You know, teamwork. You're out there with your mate. You've got these people who all want to be nasty to you. That is quite a hardening, toughening experience. Do you think that helped your football as well?
Definitely. As I say, I think during my childhood, I think cricket toughened me up probably more than football. In the experiences that I had playing at the local league levels, you mentioned the Rishtons and the Lancashire League.
Yes.
We used to play in the Lancashire Knockout and all those trophies, and you wanted to win. I remember playing at Blackpool once in a game in the Lancashire Knockout and getting bowled first ball and feeling embarrassed. That feeling of embarrassment. Then the week after you might score 50 and you feel delighted. But it was in an environment where you had grown men who had jobs during the week, who wanted to be there at weekend, who were giving up their family time to come and play cricket, and it was serious. It wasn't, you know, we weren't messing about. It wasn't just for enjoyment. It was serious. They wanted to win, and the team that you were playing against wanted to win. And that, to me, is what brings me. The gladiatorial aspect of sport is important to me. It's important. That's why I come to see England v Australia. I want the Australians to be narky like they used to be. Yes. That's what I expect of the Australians. I want them to be narky. I want us. This England team is fantastic, and I've grown up watching England for 30 years, but I trust this England team probably more than any England team that I've...
Yeah. In terms of preparation, just the way they play, you mean?
I just think that I always get the feeling with this team that they're together. I think that if you look at... if one of them fails, the other one will score, and they've obviously got a lot of quality, and it's down to players, but I generally think through the lineup that this is an England team that as a fan you can trust more than England teams potentially in the past. That's not to say that we haven't had great England teams, but the ones that I've seen,
yes,
you knew full well when you were playing against West Indies when I was growing up that it was done game. You know, Malcolm Marshall steaming in, that the slip cordon's there, and eventually he was going to get you. And the same with Warne when he was bowling El McGrath. You always got the feeling you weren't confident we'd get through this test. Not just because of quality, you didn't think whether we were mentally tough enough, or generally a mixture of both, really. And I think that in terms of this team now, this morning I had no doubts they would save the follow-on. I knew that they would get past it because you thought they're reliable. They don't let you down too many times.
Yeah. So I'm going to show you all our cakes and things. This is a commentary box now. Look at all these cakes and things we get here. How have you taken to that side of the fence? It's been an easy jump
cakes?
For you? Well, no, you haven't.
Quite well. Can you not see?
They haven't got any over there in your skybox. But how have you taken to the punditry side? Do you enjoy it? You must enjoy it, of course you do. But was it easy for you?
It wasn't easy, no. I mean, the first few shows, if I look back at them, it was so fast. Speaking so quickly, I speak quickly anyway, but everything was just a blur, really, and I need to slow myself down. But I've really enjoyed it. I really have enjoyed it. They're good people, they look after you, and I think that's the same in all media. I appreciate actually more now I've finished the media and the role of the media and the messaging and the rest of it. You know, when I was a player, if I had lost a football match, there's no way I was going out there to go and speak generally. More often than not.
You really didn't want to.
You just felt as though you'd let people down. The last thing you wanted to. But actually, looking back now, you could front up a little bit more. You could take more responsibility. I think that's something that I'm conscious of. That I think sportsmen nowadays, this is the way in which they can communicate with the fans. It always has been. But actually, I think when you see a great interview, and I was watching the first test and I was gripped. And I saw the interview after of Michael Clarke, and I thought it was sensational.
Good, wasn't he?
I really did. I thought it was. I was watching it, and he was the enemy. He's the loser. He's the opposition. But I just thought, listening to him, he was humble in the way in which he talked about his team's performance, but also the way in which he actually said that he should have made better decisions on the decision review, that he needed to get better himself. And I think when you are honest like that, I think you've got a real chance. And I think, to me, that's the sort of template of how the Olympians last year, they come off the track, they've just lost the gold medal, they've been training for 4 years, and yet they still front up.
Absolutely, and that's the real measure, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think that's something that I think we can all learn from in all different sports, but football in particular as well. You appreciate it more when you're finished, and I'm not having a go here at football players who are still playing, because when you're playing, you're in a bubble. You're all thinking about your own job, your own team, your own 3 points. But actually, there is a bigger thing out there that really, you've got a bigger message to be able to get across, and you have more power and influence than you ever recognise. When you come into the media, you appreciate that more.
Yes. Do you have to be in your bubble? I mean, I think England, actually, the current cricket team are very much in a bubble. You hear some of their interviews, and they're quite short and sharp, and there's not much given. They're in that sort of environment themselves. Do you have? I mean, I think Manchester United people say, Alex Ferguson possibly, created this sort of an environment. Do you have to have it?
The great teams, do they have to have it? The one that I've played in, the Manchester United team under Sir Alex Ferguson, we did that siege mentality, that island, you're on the island, the sharks are all around you in the sea, don't let anybody on. That sort of mentality always was the way forward. We looked after one another, we protected one another. You think about David Beckham coming back from a World Cup in '98, and the whole country's against him, but Manchester United fans turn on the rest of the country, if you like, at the time, and not necessarily the right thing to do, but bring your own in, protect them, look after them, create a siege mentality. That was Sir Alex Ferguson's, one of his ways of doing things. This England team now, they're tight. When I say I trust them, you can see that they don't let people in. They maybe are a little straight in their interviews. I can't say that that's wrong from a sporting point of view, but I think when you finish, you maybe look back and think, maybe I could have been a little bit more relaxed, but it's too late then sometimes. And I suppose it's about the education. I think that, to be fair, it is getting better. The idea that you see pre-match interviews this morning on the pitch with players, that may not have happened. It wouldn't happen in football too much. So I think football has got a bit to go in that respect. But I can understand totally, as the professional and the footballer and the cricketer, why you do want to keep things tight and not let any messages out. It's a mad world out there, and anything you say is reported in 100 different ways.
Yeah, Gary, it's been lovely to have met you. Thanks so much for coming in. Really appreciate it, and it's lovely to have met you. I hope you enjoyed listening to Gary Neville. Just imagine if he and Phil had ended up playing cricket for England.